Thank you for coming. I will introduce myself once I actually get started with the slide. We're going to go through a presentation that I have prepared for you, and we also are going to have some great conversation. We'll be able to just talk back and forth. Make sure you put your questions in the chat so that I can get to them, and it is going to be an exciting time. So what you'll see here is I have a slide up. I hope you're able to maximize that to the best of your ability. Actually, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can see the chat as well. I don't really need to see myself, but I do want to make sure that I see the chat. So welcome everybody. We are going to jump right in because I don't want to waste any time. And I'm sure for those of you that have been with us all day, you are tired and you want to get as much information you can. So were you part of the military family? My brother was Air Force Nebraska. No, Carrie, I actually went to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska for undergrad. So I wasn't a part of military at all. I learned after the fact that that was a huge military base. But no, I wasn't a part. I just went to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. It's a small private Jesuit school. So again, we are going to dive right in here. As you'll see from the first slide, this presentation is called Being Resilient in Troubling Times. And, you know, many of us have had to be resilient because of a number of things. And it's not just because of this era of COVID or racial uprising or any of that, but just because of things that have happened over our lives. And so this topic has become very near and dear to my heart. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Latrice Davis. That is my given birth name from my parents. I go by Elle, E-L-L-E. So it's just like the letter L, but it's just spelled out E-L-L-E. So I am excited. Please refer to me as Elle. You can call me Elle. I have a master's in social work. As I mentioned to some of the group earlier, I got my bachelor's at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, and I got my master's from NYU in New York. And so I'm just excited to be here. So we are going to dig right in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself so you know who I am. And so about me. As I like to refer to myself as a servant leader. And so one of the things that I'll say is slightly different. Like I am not clergy. I have not been to seminary, none of those things, right? I am a Christian woman who loves God and has had to call on God for many reasons in my life. And so my approach and maybe my viewpoint is going to be slightly different than maybe some of the other sessions that you've heard today, but I am unapologetically who I am. And so as a part of that, I believe that I am a servant leader, and I believe that God has set me up for that. I am here to serve others, and that is really what I mean by that. I'm a solo parent. That is my very bright 8-year-old that you see pictured there. She is a handful, let me tell you. And the reason I say solo parent is I am a widow of 6 years. My husband passed when my daughter was 2. And I also tell you that at the top of the hour because I also want you to know that it's in which the lens that I see things, right? So it's very much a part of my story and who I am. I am a friend, I'm a connector, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. I'm a self-employed individual, and I am a multifaceted nonprofit professional. And so what does that mean? That means I've done a lot of work in like the youth development sector, helping organizations write grants, leadership development. And so all of these things make me who I am and will provide the lens from which I think about resilience and how we get through resilience. So what I'm asking of you today, because when we talk about resilience, I really want you to come from a place of just Relaxation, I want you to be vulnerable. I want you to be as honest with yourself as possible. I don't know if you're in a room with someone right now. I don't know if you're doing this by yourself, but whatever the case may be, I really want you to be as vulnerable as you possibly can so that you can get out of this what you need to be. So, can everybody agree to that? If you agree to that, can you just type agree in the chat box? Thank you. I see some agrees coming in. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And so this notion of vulnerability, Ashe, yes, thank you. This notion of vulnerability really is about a shift occurring, and it's really about a mindset shift occurring. And oftentimes, no matter what we're doing and no matter where we are stuck in our own paths and we're stuck in these different places, and we haven't allowed our mind to shake our minds up a little bit to shift the mindset. And so vulnerability is one of those things that we don't like to be, because when we are vulnerable, we think that people are going to take advantage of us. And so I am asking you that no matter what the situation is, to learn to let your guard down first and foremost. Okay. I need you to be honest with yourself. No matter what the situation is, no matter what the challenges have been, I want you today to make sure that you are honest in everything that has taken place, every thought you have felt, every regret that you have. And then give yourself grace with all of those things, because no one is perfect. And I mean that, I mean, like, no one is perfect. And God knows that, right? And so He has already set things before us for us to overcome and conquer. And so you have to remember that you've already won the victory, no matter what it is. So that's very, very important. So today we really are going to grow together, and we're going to shift together. We're going to actually see things differently together. So even when I do this presentation, I learn something new based on the questions that are asked, based on the comments that are made. So I am no expert in this, but this is my viewpoint, my stance, and that's what I want to make sure that I'm able to share with you. Okay. And so one of the things I just want you to remind yourself is that you are wonderfully and fearfully made. Okay. You are everything that God wants you to be. And so let's dig in. Okay. Let's really dig into this whole notion of resilience and how we see it. And so, what you'll see here, most of the day, most of us start the day in a place of being lovable and capable. And what does being lovable and capable mean? That means your ability to be and do anything you put in your heart and mind to. So I'm going to give you an illustration here. So here's a person. This is a silhouette of a woman, right? And so men, I apologize. No gender bias here. Just happened to print out this silhouette. But this is a picture of a woman. And what happens to that woman or that man when they wake up is that they are filled with lovability and capability. And then somewhere along the way, and sometimes it starts the minute you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you are like, I did not sleep good. I tossed and turned all night. My back hurts, whatever it is. So what happens? Woo, a piece of that I lack is gone. That I am lovable and capable, that I lack is gone. It's tearing away. It's being torn away. And so then what happens next is, you go downstairs, you want some coffee, you want something, and your spouse, your partner, your significant other says, oh, we ran out of coffee yesterday. Oh, goodness. I just wanted coffee to help get my day started. And then, you're like, okay, that's fine. I'll go back upstairs or go back to my bedroom. I'm going to reset. I'm going to get in the shower. You go to get in the shower and there's no hot water, and you love your hot showers. So that's just more. Your eyelac is just being torn away, these layers, and where you should start the day like wonderful and excited and brilliant, you're just like, there's something else happen. So then you're like, okay, fine, cold shower. I'm good with that. It's okay. You go check your email and you forgot to submit a report. And so your boss is asking you where that report is. More eyelac, just gone. And let's not think about if you have children, If, something's going wrong with them, more eyelack. If your car breaks down, more eyelack. And you haven't even made it through the morning, and this is what you're looking like. This is how you're walking out the door. Now, how in the world are you supposed to be able to give yourself to other people when you're walking out the door like this? How many of you have ever felt like this? You can say, yay, amen, yep, that's me, whatever. How many people have ever felt like that as you were waking up in the morning, getting ready? Right. Hello, everyone. Me. Yes. Right. Like we all have felt like that. And so, what do we do though? What do we do with that notion? Sometimes we pause. Sometimes we pause and pray. Sometimes we pause and meditate. Sometimes we're just like, I don't even know what to do. You just keep going and you walk around feeling like that the entire day. And so, not only do we feel like that as adults, our children feel like that. So, can you imagine a child leaving their home like this, have no notion of how to cope? They don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to cope with this, and they walk out the door like this. But we expect them, to do so much and to do so well. We have to remember that so many of us are torn down like this all the time. So we see it in the church, we see it in the street, we see it in our jobs, we see it in our families. Everyone sometimes is walking like around like this. So what happens when we're all walking around like this on the same day? Everybody at the same time, right? So that is what our eye lack. And we all have those things that knock us down, but I'm here to tell you that you don't have to stay there, right? And so when we don't have to stay there, it's what's called resilience. And what does resilience look like? So I'm going to ask before I go, it can be chaotic if everyone is on edge. Absolutely. And that doesn't matter what the environment is. So if you've had to visually think of resilience, what do you visually see? When you think of resilience from a visual standpoint, what is it that you might see? Don't think too hard. There's no right or wrong answer. There's nothing perfect. A rubber band or a ball. Ooh, a diving board. I don't think I've ever thought about a diving board. I like that. But that's true. It kind of bounces up and down. I like that. Tennis ball that has the ability to bounce back. Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. Standing the test of time or situation. So that's us physically, right? It's almost like that I fall down, but I get back up, right? So my daughter, I told you I have an 8-year-old, and she likes these things called squishies, right? And so I was like, what child, what is a squishy? Where did you get it from? Why are we always talking about squishies? And so, but what I learned before I was doing this presentation one time, I used her squishy and it, squished in my hand and then it kind of came back. So this is what resilience looked like. So this is a little red little piece of, whatever this little red little person is. It like literally, I can smash it. So, right, y'all saw that, right? And so now in my hand, this little red little thing, little squishy, is you don't see it anymore, right? You can hardly see anything between my fingers at all. But then look what happens. It comes right back to shape. So I could do that again, and it comes right back to shape. That's us. That is us. This is us. We get smashed down, we get torn to pieces, but guess what? We can bounce back. We can come back to shape. Now, here's the difference. Now, well, actually, if you look real close, and you all won't be able to see this, but there's some little, there's a little tear there, right? And so everything might not be perfect, right? Because when we get smashed down, some things you get torn up and bruised, but that's okay. That's okay, because earlier this morning, I don't know how many of you were there for Dr. Smith's session, but she talked about, there's the power of sharing our stories and being able to let other people know the hurt and the pain and the struggle and the things that we've gone through. And so that's all a part of it. So you have to remember that no matter what, like your bounce back game, like you might get smashed, but your bounce back, it's okay. And, yes, Carrie, don't look like what you've been through, right? Like most of us don't, right? Like when I began, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story so you don't think that I'm just coming from this place of the educated person who's talking about resilience, but some of the things that I've actually gone through. And I know that on even my worst day, I don't look like some of the things that I've been through. And I know that. And I'm sure the same is for some of you. So let's dig a little bit deeper into resilience and what it means. Okay. And so resilience is an adjective. Um, resilient means springing back, rebounding. We talked about all that, returning to the original form or position after being bent, compressed, or stretched, recovering readily from illness, depression, adversity, or the like, right? Like that is what resilience means. So we talked about our bounce back game, and we want to make sure that our bounce back game is strong no matter what it is, but it's a mindset. You cannot forget that. Being able to be resilient is all about the mindset that you are willing to create. Okay. And so, what's your obstacle, right? So, if any of these things, if you've experienced any of these things, I want you to put a me, yep, a yes, anything. Been laid off, going through a divorce, high debt, caretaking for a parent, house flooded, you needed a life altering surgery, death of a loved one, difficult pregnancy, right? Some of us has experienced all of these things multiple times, right? That's some of us. Yep, caretaking. Woo, all but one. Okay, so you've experienced all of these things on this list, Shannon, except for one thing, right? Thank God for the bounce back, because that's sometimes we don't understand. Like, how do we even get through that? How are we able to even? I don't even know, right? Like that's how sometimes we're looking at ourselves. Like I have no idea how I was able to get to this place and get to that point. Okay. So yes, y'all bounce back game is strong. So here's a little bit about my journey. So I told you, I'm not talking about anything that I have not experienced. Okay? So let's go through this list. And again, if you've experienced any of this and you can agree, you can do the hand, put your hand up, whatever you want to do. So debilitating migraines. And when I say debilitating migraines, you all, I had to leave work one day from having a migraine. Never had migraines before. I suffered migraines for a few months in my life. Had never had them before. I left work because of a migraine. I literally am on the highway. This car comes out of nowhere. I swear I don't see them coming. I have no idea where they came from. I ended up turning around facing traffic, but in the median. So luckily, there were no cars coming. Somehow, because I'm trying to swerve and get out of the way of this car that I just don't know where they came from hitting me, I end up turning around facing oncoming traffic. And I'm like, my head is pounding. I can hardly see, all of those things. And luckily, there was a police officer. They were off duty police officers, backed down a ramp, turned my car around, and got me going on my way. Craziness. Very, very crazy. Family strife that I've been experiencing since I was a child, right? Just very difficult things. Met a new love, right? Like sometimes that's not always a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing, right? Depending upon what we go through in those relationships. I've been laid off 3 times. I've only worked for 3 organizations in my entire career. So I've been laid off from every organization that I've worked for. Traveling is not always a good thing. It sometimes means that we have to bounce back for something. I was engaged and married within 6 months. I had significant work projects that also left me like stressed and tired. I had a difficult pregnancy. The year after my difficult pregnancy, I had to have a myomectomy. Black women suffer from fibroids. There's all these things that go on in our body in which we struggle with. The biggest by far, the biggest thing that I've had to suffer with by far is the unexpected loss of my husband, right? Because literally, when I tell you, My husband and I woke up happy, bright, wonderful day. And before the next day came, my husband went to sleep and never woke up again. That, when you have a 2-year-old, when you just think that you had one of the best mornings, best days of your life, and you're excited, like that kind of loss knocks you out and it completely changes you from one moment to the next. Okay. And so it's important that you see that, you recognize that for people when they're going through, when they're struggling. I managed an emotionally scarred team during one of my work um, stints. And then, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer and couldn't beat it. And that all happened in a very short period of time. The year my husband passed, my grandmother also passed. Like everything just changes, right? Through these loss. And we think about, just oftentimes we think about grief just in the sense of losing a loved one, a person, but we grieve all of these things. We grieve friendships that we don't have anymore. We grieve jobs that we've lost. We grieve things that we may have, material things that we may have had to get rid of. And it's okay, because those things are a part of who we are. And oftentimes they have made us into something else. So Cynthia, thank you for sharing. You've been there, sudden loss of a husband. Right. Your world is never the same. Absolutely. And so, one of the things that's important when we think about grief and loss, though, is this whole notion of empathy, and having empathy in action, and what that looks like. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Brene Brown, but she talks a lot about vulnerability and empathy. And there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And sometimes we can't see that. Sometimes when we're in it, we're actually sympathizing with people, we're not empathizing with people. And so, here's a quick video that we're going to show. Now let's hope that this plays correctly. I think what I want to do is I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I want you to see this other screen, Chrome tab, and let me know if you can hear this, because I want to make sure you all can see that. I hope this is playing. So, oh no. Okay, you all didn't see it. So I am going to share the screen. I couldn't, it was hard for me to, let me stop. Sorry about that. I so apologize that you all could not see that. But I shared it with you so you can go ahead and watch it on your own. It is the difference between empathy and sympathy. And I apologize that you can't hear that. Sometimes the technology does not uh, cooperate with us. Marta, yes, my mantra, being empathetic and sympathetic are different. You have a bigger connection as you allow yourself to be empathetic, but it is also more draining and vulnerable. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And sometimes you have to, because you have to be conscious of it, right? And so that's about being resilient, though, because one of the things is like resilience is a muscle, right? So it's like the more we use it, the more we exercise with resilience. It's like the kind of the easier it gets. Not all the time, though, because it depends on what the situation is that we're supporting someone through. So it can be very difficult. But please, when you have a minute, just it's literally a 2 minute, like 2 minute and 45-second video. Check out the video that I posted in the chat. And of course, there's always technology. There's always something a little bit wrong that we can't get. So I'm sorry that you weren't able to see that. But I bring that up because it's important that you also be able to recognize and know what you need. Okay. Like it's like, so when people, when you're going through loss, when you're going through things, when you're going through a divorce, when you're going through a hard time at work, like you don't want people to always be sympathetic with you because that's just like, oh, pat on the back. I'm so sorry, Eleanor, that that's what you're going through. I'm so sorry, Jacqueline, that you're going through that. But sometimes you just want someone to like sit with you in that space. You want someone to say, like, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you. Like that's being empathetic, opposed to just the sorry for your loss, right? So it's important to recognize that. So please save that video for your own, for you to be able to watch and to see, so that you can really recognize what that is. And I'll keep that in the chat box. All right. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen so that we can go. Thank you. Yes, that is a great video. So yeah, make sure you share it with others as you need to. So the other thing about resilience is what I like to call signs and wonders. And signs and wonders is pretty significant and impactful because this is where God shows up in the silent times, in the times that we just don't expect, right? So, quick story. As I was sharing with people earlier, for those of you that may have heard, I live in Chicago. And oftentimes, when meetings are downtown Chicago, sometimes I take public transportation because it's difficult to find parking. On this particular day, in a summer day 2 years ago, I decided to drive. And as I'm driving back from the meeting, I'm on what's called Columbus Drive. For those of you that have ever been to Chicago, I'm on Columbus, and this truck turns in front of me. And so that's what you'll see here. It's this truck, this Paul Davis truck. It says recover, reconstruct, restore. And I stopped and I smiled. And I had a colleague in the car with me, and I said, please grab that picture. And so this is a picture that my colleague grabbed. Well, why is this important? And I spent some time on social media. And so I posted on social media. I said, wow. I said, I had a pretty rough week. And I was preparing some work and doing some different things and just having a really hard time with focusing and being clear on what I needed to do. And then what happened? I see this. Well, Paul Davis may mean nothing to you. And you'll see this and be like, oh, okay, it's a Paul Davis truck. Well, Paul Davis was my husband's name. So this was 2 years ago. So this was 4 years after his passing. And in a time where I was very just flustered, for lack of a better word, I was like, Lord, what do you want me to do? Where am I supposed to go? All of these questions I had. And this Paul Davis truck pulls out on in front of me. Recover, reconstruct, restore. I said, well, if that's not a word, and if that's not a message, and if that is not a sign and wonder that just came out of nowhere, I don't know what else is. And so as I started to do talks and presentations around resilience, what I understood for me is that this was a direct link to that. Like this recover, reconstruct, restore is a direct link to what resilience is all about. Because in resilience, we have to recover, we have to reconstruct, and we have to restore ourselves, our minds, our body, our soul. And so, like, that is a sign that I was floored, you all. And so, every once in a while, I had never heard of this company before. Every once in a while, I still see those Paul Davis trucks. And when I tell you they happen, when I am having a rough time, when I've had a rough day, when I'm having a rough week, when I had a dream that I don't understand, something like that, these Paul Davis trucks come. And so it is pretty amazing to be able to see that, know that, understand that. So you have to look and pay attention for the signs and wonders because they too help you become resilient. Those signs and wonders help you to have clarity about how you bounce back. So don't miss those signs. Don't miss that. Whether it comes in a dream, whether it comes in another person, whether it comes in finding something that belonged to somebody else that you hadn't seen in a long time, old journals, phone calls out of the blue, all of those are signs and wonders that come to us. God speaks to us in a variety of ways. Okay. And so you have to make sure that you are paying attention to all of those ways. Sometimes it's a butterfly that lands on the rooftop of your car. Something like there's all kinds of things that you have to pay attention to. So you have to keep your eyes wide open. Yes, yes, God blesses us with signs and wonders of healing. Absolutely. Yes, we are hearing from God. Absolutely. You both are correct. Jackie and Jacqueline, you both are correct. And so bouncing back, how do we really bounce back? What does this mean? What is this whole notion of resilience and how we actually bounce back? What does that look like? And I want to make sure I look at my notes because I don't want to leave anything out. So the first thing we have is recover. And so, recover is an action word. So, and it means to regain the strength, composure, balance, or the like of oneself. So when we recover from something, that is a part of our resilience. That's a part of our bounce back, right? And so how do we gain our strength or how do we gain our balance? And you have to think about that. What does that look like for you? So from one thing for me, like regaining my strength, it's about, again, back to our mindset, it's about optimism, right? So I choose to have optimism in most things. And it could be something as simple as rain. So if it's raining, I'm sitting right outside a window right now. So if it's raining outside, I'm like, oh man, it's raining. I might be sad for a moment, but then I realize and recognize that guess what? The trees, the flowers, the plants, everything needs the rain. So I choose to be optimistic in that moment, opposed to being pessimistic and thinking like, oh, this is something I want to go away. So we often sometimes have to think about that. Again, it's our mindset and we have to shift our mindset. So it's about choosing to be positive, no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what the circumstance is, because the reality of it is that yes, there could always be something worse. So like being content and being okay with the present place that we are in, that is a choice. It is a choice that you can make every day. And don't forget that. It's very important. And when you're working with people, talking to people, whether it's people from the church, whether it's people on your job, no matter where those people are, you have to remind people that they have a choice. So regaining our strength, regaining our composure is all about our mindset shift in terms of being a positive influence in terms of what that is. Okay. And so one of the things that I'd like you to do is just even when you think about personally, I don't know how many of you all journal, but I want you to think about keeping a positivity journal or optimism journal or a gratitude journal. You can call it whatever you'd like. But those things down. Try it for 30 days. Be consistent. It doesn't have to be a long anything. It can be, I am positive about, or I am grateful for, whatever it is, keep a journal of it for 30 days and then go back and review that and see what that does for you. Okay. Next, reconstruct. I'm sorry. So reconstruct, rebuild, to make over. And one of the easiest ways that oftentimes people think about like making themselves over is like literally, yes, we can make our face over, things like that. But it's also sometimes about how we utilize our body, right? And so oftentimes, one way to reconstruct or make over is to get healthier, and so walking is very important in terms of that, and making sure that your body is healed, because what happens is we carry a lot of resentment and fear and all of those things, frustrations. We carry that in our bodies. And so when our knees start to break down, and when our heart isn't working right, and when the circulation of our blood is not flowing through our bodies the way we need to, then oftentimes that means we need to reconstruct some things. And that's because we're harboring those feelings. We're harboring the stress. Stress is a silent killer. It kills people every single day. Why? Because we can't always see the signs, because we don't always immediately have the hurt in our knees, or, in our calves, or in our legs, or in our back. But you all have to understand that we're carrying that around with us. And so you have to relieve that. So you have to do stress relieving things that puts you in a different place. And so that may be yoga, that may be exercise, that may be, even when we're talking about the mindset shift and making our mind over, that means you start your day with prayer and meditation, opposed to starting your day picking up your phone, looking at your email, or looking at the news, right? So it's about rebuilding, making over, reconstructing our mind to take in the information that is going to soothe us for the day, silence us for the day, opposed to taking in the information that is going to jar us. Because when we wake up listening to news and going to social media and like taking in all of this negative stuff, it jars us in a very negative, bad way. So we have to remember that. And then lastly, we talk about restoring when we talk about resilience, bringing back to the state of soundness or vigor, right? And so when we talk about restoring, oftentimes what I like to think about and talk about is something that we can't do right now, y'all, is vacation. And I miss my vacations. Like, I absolutely am missing my vacations, right? And so that is a challenge, because that is a huge part of restoration and how people are able to restore themselves. And so oftentimes we're missing that, because you need the time to just be silent and to just be still, in no matter what you're doing. So it's very important that we think about that too. So those are three ways that my husband sent me, my late husband sent me, as I think about resilience. It's about recovering, it's about reconstructing, it's about restoring, right? And that is how our bounce back game is ends up being strong. And so with that, one of the things that's very important for us to recognize is it's okay to be flawed, right? We walk around sometimes and we try to mend everything up, but we try to mend it up in a way that nobody sees our hurt. Nobody sees our pain. We just want everybody to think that we are perfect beings, and we know that we are not. And so there's a Japanese philosophy called golden joinery. And so as you can see, what you see here in this picture is there's no attempt to hide the damage, right? Because in golden joinery, what they believe is that you can put the bowl back together, but they want to highlight it. So they use gold dust, they use gold glue, and then they dust it over with gold, because they want you to see the flaws. They want you to see that no matter how many flaws you have, this piece is still beautiful. So this picture, this bowl is still absolutely beautiful. You are still magnificent, wonderful, and beautiful with all of the flaws that you have, with all of the struggles that you have been through, with everything that you have experienced in your life. It does not matter, because God can still use you. He can still use the broken vessels, and actually he wants the broken vessels. That's who he wants to be able to use. And you have to remember and hold on to that for yourself and for those that you come in contact with, whether they are friend, foe, co-worker, family member, no matter what it is. God wants to use you, and he wants you to tell your story about your brokenness. And that is how we are also able to heal. Resilience, again, I said it earlier, resilience is a muscle. So resilience comes in a way for us to be able to heal. Resilience comes in a way that once we share our stories and tell our hurt and pain, we are then giving someone else permission to tell their hurt and their pain. And so we are then on this domino effect of being able to help each other and support each other through all that we need to do. So it's okay to be flawed. Show your scars. It's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. I want to remind you that each of you are part of the bigger picture. Every single person, like all this world has a big, we're all just a big old puzzle, and each of us has to play our role. And so that means once we learn how to be resilient in our lives, once we learn that no matter what struggles we face, that it's okay. And that when someone else sees that, they're like, oh, it's okay for me. It's okay for you. I can tell somebody else that it's okay. And so we have to continue that cycle of letting people know that you're all a part of the bigger picture. And so there's no mistake today that we are here from Alabama, from New Jersey, from South Africa. There's no mistake today that we are all here together, learning, meeting one another, getting to know one another. There's no mistake in that, because you needed to hear this so that you can then share it with someone else. Some of you may have never heard of golden joinery before and that philosophy of being flawed and showing it like that. We talk about it from the Bible standpoint of like being broken vessels and God still used me, but we don't necessarily highlight it in gold. And that's what I want you to do today. I want you, just like this picture you see, this gold, I want you to highlight your scars in gold. I don't want you to hide them. I don't want you to say, oh, but I'm not sure because I'm a widow. I'm not sure because I'm divorced. I'm not sure because I was a teen parent. Whatever that case may be, God can use you in everything that you do. And so one of the things about resilience is it's like this cycle, right, that we go through. And so what is important for you to understand is that, like, again, back to the mindset shift, I'm gonna harp on that. You have to focus on your strengths, which then, so that's the optimism that I talked about earlier. It leads you to an attitude to life, focusing on like what you can do opposed to what you can't do. So then you're emotionally aware, you have better communication, you have a better emotional intelligence, you have a little bit more self control over what you can do. Because remember, we don't control anything, right? We think we do, but we don't. And that's okay. And sometimes we have to have those conversations and remind ourselves of that. Making sure that you have a social support, making sure that, you know, like you can laugh at yourself and laugh at other things and laugh at other people. Having the self belief that you absolutely can get through anything, and then the ability to problem solve. So it's really important that you have critical thinking skills in terms of no matter what you're going through and no matter what that is. And so this is kind of your cycle of resilience that you can use as you're thinking about or sharing with other people. And what that means through cycles of resilience also is that means that sometimes you need to go to therapy. I was in therapy 3 weeks after my husband passed because I knew there was no other way. However, on the same night that my husband passed, it was Holy Week, and I was also in my church, face down on the floor, asking God, like, to help me through this because I had no idea what to do. So that was the combination, right? I had my spiritual community and I had my therapist, and they had to work together for me to be able to really succeed and do what I needed to do. So as I wrap up, I have two quotes here that I just love to be able to share with people and to put on people's mind. Is I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me. And so often we have to remember that, like, whatever's on the inside of you is there for a reason. And so you have to, you know, let that out and like not pay too much attention to what's going out around out here. And resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going. I want each and every one of you to keep going no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the challenges you face. Know that you can be like this little red squishy that I showed you earlier. You know, you might be here, but you can definitely bounce back and come back here. But guess what? You're going to have a few little bruises to show along the way, and that's okay. We want to highlight those bruises. So I thank you for being with me today and spending some time with me today. It has been a pleasure in terms of getting to know some of you and sharing this time. And so I will open it up for questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep my information up so that you can follow me and please, whatever you learned today, continue to share with other people. And definitely, if there are any questions, I would love to answer them. And again, I apologize for the mishap with the audio for the video, but again, I hope that you are able to get the link for that video and see it. Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. I appreciate each and every positive comment. I thank you. How do you respond to pushback from those who don't believe a therapist is necessary? Shannon, Shannon, Shannon. How do you respond to pushback from those who believe a therapist is necessary? So, what I often do, because I actually have this as a personal experience with my mom. As I mentioned, my dad passed 2 years ago. And so my mom and my dad were still married. And I told my mom, I said, Mommy, I really think you should go to therapy. Um, and she's like, for what? I'm just going to tell them what they want to hear, And I was so like disheartened and like just I couldn't even know how to respond. I was just really disheartened from that. Um, and I was just like, Mommy, I understand that that's not something that you necessarily believe in or think that you should. I said, but not just the hurt of like losing your husband. I said, but just the pain and suffering that you even suffered as a child through some of the things that she experienced. And so I just continue, Shannon, I continue to talk to her about it occasionally, or I'll send articles or I'll send information. So it's finding different ways to at least plant the seed and in hopes that one day you can get them to actually, go ahead and seek therapy. There's been a cultural shift um, in the Black community, especially, that people are realizing and recognizing that more people need therapy. And so people are more open to it than they have been in the past. So just continue to plant those seeds, whether it be through articles or anything around that. Okay. Cynthia, know that when you see a Paul Davis truck, that is a sign from God that your husband is in heaven watching over you. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Cynthia, and it's true, and I know it to be true. Does social work tend to work better than psychology? Social work tends to be more broadly focused, where psychology is, yes. Ciandra, I hope I'm saying your name right, either Ciandra or Kendra. Yes, social work is broader than psychology. I thought about majoring in psychology when I was in school and realized that that's not the route I wanted to go. And so I did social work because it allows me to do a lot more. And so one of the things that I learned later on in my career is that I enjoyed like training and doing facilitation like this. And, I don't know that I would have been exposed to that if I had gone the psychology route. So, yeah, so I definitely really like social work and what I've gained from that. Shannon, you're welcome. Thank you for your authenticity. Powerful presentation. Will continue to pray your strength. Thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. I really do. So yeah, what other questions do you all have? Any struggles with resilience? I'm not sure how much time we have left. I haven't looked at that. So you have been absolutely wonderful, so refreshing. Hopefully you allow me to bring about hidden, trying to pretend it didn't happen. Please continue to share your story. That's helped me so much. Some people really do not care, but you do. Oh, thank you so much, Jackie. I truly appreciate that. Thank you. 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 I am so grateful to you all. I am so grateful that you were in this room and that you chose to spend your afternoon with me, or your evening or early morning, wherever you are in the world. I really thank you all. I appreciate it. Please connect with me. My email address is there. LinkedIn, Instagram. Definitely, please connect with me in whatever way. If I could ever be of service to whether it be your congregation, your place of employment, your friend group, anything. Occasionally, I do calls for widows. So, for those of you, if there's a widow on in the group, please definitely reach out to me because sometimes I just have different opportunities where widows can just connect because I know that that can be a lonely place. Um, so yeah, so thank you. I'm so grateful to you all. This is fun. I wish we could have had more interaction, but that's okay. Anywhere else that I can help you? Your presentation had been so beneficial to me as a pastor who's dealing with resilience in the context of congregational renewal. Yes, Janet, I love that. I love that. Here's what I'll say about that too. And so this is more along the lines from grief. And Janet, I don't know if you have a grief ministry at your church, um, but I've talked to my church about doing grief ministry because I live on the south side of Chicago, and you would think as many resources as we have, it is so difficult to find grief groups, right? And so and they don't even have to be specific to like widow or father or parental loss or child loss or any of that, but it's just really difficult to get people together in groups. And that's one of that was another way that I was able to bounce back and be resilient after my husband passed. I was in therapy. I found a group. I found a group for those that have lost loved ones. It wasn't just for widows. And I have my church community. So it's very important that you can't like combat things with just like a one hit, right? You have to combat things so in that case, that was a trifecta approach for me. And that's not even mentioning like my friend community or my family community. So it's really important. And some people, after experiencing what most of us calls like L's, like loss after loss after loss, like sometimes we just hit a wall that we're just like we feel like we can't go on any longer. And that's why I say it's a choice. And that's what, if you are a church leader, I really want you to impress upon your parishioners that it like everything that we go through is choice. Like optimism is a choice. Having a positive mindset is a choice. Like even wallowing to a certain degree, like when we wallow in grief, that's a choice. We have to make the decision every single day to get up and push past the pain, no matter what that pain is. Like we have to make that decision every single day. And so that's one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand. And sometimes people don't understand that, but it's absolutely a choice. I'm going to stop screen sharing. I hope if you wanted the information that you got it. But yeah, so it's just a choice. And so definitely, what do you say to people who say to you, snap out when you are feeling down and can't get out of the valley of despair? What do you say to people who say to you, snap out of it? Um, sometimes you have to be just very honest with people and let them know that they are not being sensitive to what you're going through. And you might have to show them the empathy versus sympathy video, right? Like, because that's really what that's about at the end of the day. It means that they are not being empathetic to what is happening with you. And that's not okay, right? And so it's not so much a snap out of it, but it's figuring out how they can help and support you from getting out of it. So, what is it that you're struggling with? And sometimes you have to figure out what you need in that place and in that moment so that you can get out of it, right? And so maybe it's you need somebody to help you look for a new job. Maybe it's you need to feel better about your physical appearance because you've suffered a divorce and you feel like unattractive, or like you have to also really be willing to work with people to figure out what it is. So it's not snap out of it like I don't care like what you're going through, but it's I want to help you out of this, right? I want to help you so that you can get to a different place. How can I help you? And sometimes when we are hurt, we don't know how people can help us. And so we need somebody sometimes to say, like, I can do the grocery shopping for you. I can, send a housekeeper to your house. I can send meals to your house. I can go for a walk with you. Don't tell me to just go for a walk. Come for a walk with me. So that way that gets me going, and maybe I talk, maybe I don't, but at least opening up the doors for that. So, but if someone says that to you, you can let them know that they're being insensitive, and what you need right now is not for that insensitivity, but you need somebody who can support you in the process. And it's okay for you to say that you don't know how you need help, but you need help. That's all okay. And I'd rather for people to say that opposed to, just throwing it away. So you're welcome, Helen. I hope that definitely helped. Any other questions before we wrap up? Any other questions? Thank you all for your attentiveness. I really appreciate meeting you all and connecting with you. If none, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you all. It has been a pleasure. And again, please feel free to reach out to me. Remember that you are resilient. Remember that even if you wake up like this, even if you got to leave the house like this, it's okay. It is absolutely okay. You can bounce back. You can get back to a place of where you need to be. I will stay here and answer any questions if need be, for as long as they don't kick me out of the room. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, you're going to make me cry, Eleanor. Oh, my goodness. You are going to absolutely make me cry. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. You all are awesome. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are filling my cup up as I go into this weekend, and I need that because I have a very busy work week next week. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Janet, okay, you have a person who wants to start grief ministry. How should you go about getting started? So I think it depends on their background. And so one of the things that my church asked me, number one, is like, did I want to lead the grief ministry? And if I had someone else in mind who could help me and support me in that so that I wouldn't get completely burned out in terms of doing it. So I would say if someone wants to start it, they definitely need to have a plan in place in terms of a timeline. Like, do they want to do it ongoing throughout the year? Do they want to do it in 12-week chunks, 8-week chunks, however that is? Do they want it to be, excuse me, a more formal process? So, is this where you're going through curriculum, like the stages of grief? Or is it an opportunity for people to just come together and talk? And I'll say I think it can work both ways. My experience in the group that I was a part of, there was no set curriculum. There were two facilitators. It was either 8 or 10 weeks. Don't quote me on that. Somewhere between, maybe somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks. Met for an hour each week. And we literally came and they kind of opened it up to like talking about loss that they had experienced, or they did sometimes have us, like one time we brought a picture in of the person that we were mourning. um, we did a lot of quiet reflective time even within the group, and it was an opportunity for you to just talk at will. So you did not have to come in and like you didn't have anything prepared or anything like that. So set the time limit. How long for that period of time? So if it's 8 weeks, an hour each week, who's going to actually facilitate and moderate the group? Whether or not you want it to be formal or informal. And if you do want more of a formal, like understanding the grief, the stages of grief, and how do you get through those stages and things like that. If you type in, I think if you go to Grief Share, I'm not sure if I can't remember if it's griefshare.org, but I think if you go to Grief Share, then you might be linked to a couple things. There are some resources that you can purchase, but people can really, if you want to just start off, you can start informally and then see if that is really catering to your ministry, like catering to the audience. You can also send a survey out ahead of time, like develop a survey to ask, like if people think it would be beneficial and if that's what they would really like, how many people would actually attend, and decide whether or not it's just for the church community or if it's for the larger local community where your church is located. So that's how I would start, and maybe even pull a subgroup together, maybe pull a committee together so that one person doesn't feel like they're doing all of the work and that they can actually get some support in doing it. Because that's what's been my holdup, is I don't want to be the only person. And I can't. I have a school age child. So and I work independently, so I just don't have it in me, the wherewithal in me to facilitate a group by myself. So if you can get a small committee together who are all interested and kind of answer those questions about, like, is it community, is it just for the church, what day of the week you'll meet, what time, those things, and just start it informally. And then you can tweak later. You can decide if you want a more formal process or not. I hope that helps.